Welcome to the City. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And joining us today is Trinidad Aguirre. He is the chairman of our Charter Review Committee, the Citizens Committee that has been tasked with reviewing the city charter. Trinidad, thanks for being with us.
Well, good morning.
Let's start off with some basics. What is the city charter?
You know, the San Angelo, the city charter was created around 1915, just to give you kind of a rough estimate. And what it does is it's the guidelines in which we manage our city, and it's the guidelines on the type of governmental department that we have. We've elected to have a mayor, city council, and a city manager. And in the charter, what we do is we outline their responsibilities, how they get elected, their pay, and et cetera. You know, in addition, in the city charter, we have, how we manage our finances. Lake Nasworthy is in there, the judicial system. So there's a tremendous amount of information on how we manage the city at a very high level. And we treat it like the Constitution of the United States. So it's a very detailed document that I believe that everybody should read, because it's only 20 pages, but the data in there is very worthwhile. And
like our state constitution, the city charter is changed from time to time. When was the last time that the charter was changed?
It's been, I think it was 2007 was the last time that it was changed, but overall it's been changed or modified 12 times since its inception. So this is something that needs to occur from time to time to ensure that we're in alignment with state and federal practices, and if things have changed in the city, that we modify those things so that we are operating at the highest level possible.
And of course, those changes have to be approved by the voters during an election. How often can an election be held?
Once you modify a charter, it has to sit for 2 years. But that doesn't mean that we can't continue to review the document and prepare for the next 2 years. So it's one of those things that we can only take so much information, to the voters, because there is a lot of data out there. But the document itself is very strong and very good, and we'll only make those changes that are absolutely required.
So the City Council recently appointed 7 citizens to the Charter Review Committee. You were chosen by those 7 to serve as their chairman of this committee. Talk a little bit about what the purpose of the Charter Review Committee is.
Our purpose is to review the document in its entirety, even the potential of rewriting it. So what we're doing is we're going word by word, paragraph by paragraph, and we're looking at its entirety and ensuring that they're first off to make sure that it's in alignment, as we discussed earlier. But the other thing we're looking at is what are those things that we need to change that would really help the city manager, the mayor, the citizens, all of the other interest groups out there, to accomplish the goals and to make San Angelo just a better place. So we are the review committee, and we're going to refresh the document.
And how long are you going to devote to this review?
Well, our deadline is July 29th. So what we're trying to do is get to a November, second Tuesday in November election. So what our guidelines is, we need to have a recommendation to the City Council by July 29th. It's very aggressive, but at the same token, we have to be very focused, we have to be very systematic, and I believe that it's a doable project for us.
And so how often will the review committee be meeting, and where are those meetings held?
We're going to be meeting the first and third, the first and third Wednesday of every month, and it's going to be at 3 o'clock in the second floor of the City Hall in the conference room there. So the public is welcome. In fact, we have media there at every meeting, and we do have some attendees be there as well. So we welcome the public, we welcome the input. This is an open meeting, and we want everyone to enjoy it.
And of course, we should mention that we've set up a website just for the Charter Review Committees. It's cosatx.us/Charter Review Committee. People can go there, see the agenda, see the minutes, and see some information about what you are working on. Now, how much of what the Charter Review Committee is doing would be considered sort of housekeeping, that is, cleaning up outdated information within the document?
Anthony, we mentioned that it's been reviewed 12 times, and so there's a little bit of housekeeping. I'd say around 5%. The majority of it is going to be to align with state and federal practices, and we'll highlight those that these modifications are for that. But I would say the majority of what we're looking at is what I would say the real substance, things that do need to be changed, again, for the betterment of the city.
Well, let's talk about some of the newsworthy issues that you've already encountered as a committee. San Angelo is, of course, one of only 3 Texas cities that elects its police chief, and we're by far the largest city that does that. An initiative to move to an appointed police chief, as all the other directors of different departments are appointed, has been proposed before, has been put before the voters. It's always been defeated, but always by ever decreasing margins. That being the case, do you anticipate proposing a move to an appointed police chief as part of the review process this time?
You know, I can speak on 2 fronts. One of them, I can tell you that as a committee, we have not decided to do that yet. But then on a personal basis, I do believe that the police chief should be appointed. So, you know, I'm looking at it from the standpoint that it's very disruptive to the city to have, you know, an election every 4 years. What it does is it creates an environment that, you know, could bring some sort of split among the not only the city officials but the officers and everyone else. So, from the standpoint of having just a very smooth flow and allowing the police chief to have short and long-term goals to financial and just to have a better overall understanding of the police department, I believe that we should go to an appointed police chief.
So when the committee discussed this, what was the discussion among the committee? Could you get a feel for which way the committee as a whole was leaning?
I think they will go with the appointed. But again, it's wrong for me to say that. But I do believe that we're leaning toward the appointed for the reasons that we outlined.
So as you're out in the community, are people asking you about this, or are they offering their opinions on this issue in particular? You
know, Anthony, it's kind of interesting because I ask them, and I would say that at this point, about 80 to 85% of the individuals really want an appointed police officer. Their only concern is the criteria, and my recommendation is we do this in a very open-minded forum type. We have a very strict criteria for the qualifications. We come back in and we outline who's going to be doing the selection, and then we come back and working with city council and city manager. You know, it's very open to the public, so that they understand that this is not a politically or a political choice per se.
The committee has also discussed the possibility of increasing pay for city council members. People may not realize, but the mayor only earns currently $50 per month, and council members are paid about $42 a month. What has the committee said about potentially raising the pay of city council members? You
know, the city councils and the mayor are at a disadvantage. They truly don't get paid or reimbursed for their expenses. So we are looking, you know, at what we can do, what adjustments we can make. But we're also looking at tying, you know, some of the increases to an index, a performance index of some sort. So it's a good opportunity for us to take care of our mayor and councilmen.
The committee has also discussed the possibility of term limits for city council members. Tell us about those discussions.
You know, that's still on the fence. We know that you know, the public will vote for whomever they feel comfortable with and is, you know, truly responding to their needs. But on the other side of it, it's always good to have new ideas, fresh thoughts, and so that is something that is still, I would say, 50-50.
So do you mind sharing your own personal view? You've run for city council before. What do you think of the possibility of term limits?
I think they're good. I believe that, you know, and whether it's 8 years or 10 years, it's going to be a number that we still enjoy the knowledge of the city council members. But, you know, with time, there's a lot of changes. Technology is coming in upon us. So it's time to, I believe that it would be good to refresh.
Are there any other issues that you think will be of great interest or impact to the voters aside from the 3 that we've already mentioned?
You know, based on conversations, Anthony, one of the things that comes up is nighttime meetings. I believe that if we go to a nighttime meeting, it does 2 things. I think we'll have more attendance from the public because they're not at work. And the second thing, I think it's going to open up a pot of gold to people that want to run for office. Today, they may not be able to run for either a mayor or a city council because their work or their employer may not allow them the time off that's required. School teachers come to mind, professors, you know, so there's a lot of individuals. So it's a two-way street. I think that we'll continue to look into that.
So you're talking about that being the standard operating procedure as opposed to some of the special nighttime meetings that council already has.
That is correct, and I know there's issues with that, but other cities have overcome them. We're a smart city. We'll be able to manage through those processes.
Any other issues that you'd like to highlight?
That's the only one that comes to top of mind. I know that people have asked about that, and so I thought I'd highlight that one.
Are people coming to you with any suggestions or questions about this review process?
They have. They've actually shown a great deal of interest, which I think is fantastic. One of the things we are going to do is start taking our information to the public. Well, we're going to piggyback off of some of the council meetings that they're holding. We'll be talking to the different political entities, whether it's Democrat, Republican. We're going to go back out to the different schools. But what we want to do is not have the public just come to us. Excuse me, but we want to be able to take our information back to the public so we can get affirmative, when it comes to vote on those things that we are recommending.
So when you take these proposed changes to the voters, do they vote on these things individually, or do they approve or reject all of the proposed changes as a whole?
They will vote on them individually, but I will try to segment them. The bottom segment will be that these are items that will align us with federal and state law so that they're not commingled, and the voters will understand that these are things that we really need to pass just to be in alignment.
And do you expect a good turnout for this, especially with it being a November election?
I hope so. Voter turnout is always an issue for us. And in order, especially with the police chief, I want to hear from everyone out there, if that is changed and the other issues we talked about. So, the best thing we can do is get the voters out there and have them give us, their vote of confidence that we're doing the right thing.
And I mentioned before the website, cosatx.us/Charter Review Committee. If people want to engage in the process in some way or know more about what you're doing, what are some other ways that they can go about doing that?
I would recommend a couple of things. One of them is to attend our meetings. They're welcome to, and we'd love to see them there. And if we need to get a bigger room, we will. And the other thing would be to contact your city council members. They appointed us. We listen to them. We're in communications with them. And of course, the website would always be the best choice.
We've been talking with Trinidad Aguirre. He is the chairman of the Charter Review Committee. When we return, we'll be talking with our budget manager, Morgan Chegwidden, about the capital improvement plan.
I am Dwayne Morrison, and I am the mayor of the City of San Angelo. Last year in 2014, I took the HEB challenge, and I said that there was too much mayor in San Angelo and that I was going to lose 40 pounds of my mayorship. Well, I failed. Here I am again taking the same HEB challenge in 2015, and once again I am making the same promise that I'm going to eliminate 40 pounds of the mayorship in San Angelo, Texas. 3 weeks ago, I bought new Levi's in preparation for the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo, which is, I might add, the third largest in the entire Lone Star State of Texas. And as I began to unpack these blue jeans, I realized that unfurled, there was enough material in this thing to sail a small ship. And I told my wife something has to be done. So, I'm walking the dog again now. I'm having my portions. I've taken the sugar out of my tea, and I no longer drink soft drinks. I have changed my eating habits, and in 3 weeks, I am beginning to see some modest results. The mayor of San Angelo has decided to embark upon a very serious girth control program. And as mayor, I'm issuing the same challenge to my citizens. Enter into a serious girth control program, and let's change the way we eat. Let's change the way we prepare our foods. Let's exercise. Let's make a conscious effort to lose some weight in 2015. When you were a child and your mom would put those vegetables on the plate and eat them and say, "They good for you?" Well, she was telling you the truth. We all need to change our eating habits. I hope in 2016 that we will have eliminated the extra weight in our community, because heart disease and diabetes are epidemic in our society, and they will be epidemic in our society because statistically better than half of us are too fat. In 2016, I want to stand before you again to take the HEB challenge again and tell you that I have lost 40 pounds of unwanted, unnecessary, unneeded weight, unhealthy weight. And the next time somebody tells me to haul myself to another room, I plan on doing it in one trip. I am Dwayne Morrison, the mayor of San Angelo. Giddy up.
Theoretically, a female dog and her offspring are biologically capable of producing 67,000 dogs over a 6-year span. That underscores the need to spay or neuter your dog. I'm Becca Sankey with Concho Valley Paws. Please don't contribute to the thousands of unwanted animals that end up euthanized each year at the San Angelo Animal Shelter. Learn how to get a spay-neuter voucher at conchovalleypaws.org. It's the snip that saves money, time, and lives.
No time to sit through a 4, 5, or 6 hour City Council meeting? Watch on demand at youtube.com/City of San Angelo TX. There you'll find all of the City Council meetings, which you can scan for the discussions and decisions that interest and impact you most. Plus, at your leisure, watch the full complement of our Cheeky City in 60 Seconds, the City Interview Show, and all the other award-winning programming on SATV. Watch your city government on demand at youtube.com/City of San Angelo TX. Welcome back. We are now joined by our Budget Manager, Morgan Chegwidden. She is here to talk about the Capital Improvement Plan. Morgan, thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Anthony.
First things first, what's the Capital Improvement Plan?
Well, it's our annual plan that we adopt to have a 5-year horizon of capital projects, big things that need to be going on with the city. We just want to be able to inventory them all and have a good list to work through.
So if people want to read that document, which we refer to as the CIP for the Capital Improvement Plan, where can they go to do that?
They can certainly go online at cosatx.us/CIP input. They can also call my office at 653-6291.
And we have hard copies available at
Absolutely.
City Hall. So are the projects within the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, are they guaranteed, and I know it's a 5-year plan, are they guaranteed to be in the budget within the next 5 years?
That it's not necessarily a guarantee. There's certainly some projects that have not yet identified funding, and so we're working through that progress. We want to get, in the next 5 years, a plan to fund each of those. So is it likely that they're going to be funded sometime in the next 5 years? Sure. There's certainly things on there that we need to address and serve our citizens with.
So talk a little bit about the role that the Capital Improvement Plan plays in making those funding decisions.
The Capital Improvement Plan is really our first starting point for knowing what big things are going on in the city, what things we have on the horizon that need to be addressed. And so it helps have a plan for when they need to be structured for funding, and lets us have a bigger viewpoint of when those things are coming up.
And so it sort of serves as a list of priorities, and those priorities are ranked, and then the funding decisions are made based upon those priorities to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. They should certainly support the council's priorities and staff's recommendations.
So it's a very thick, voluminous document. How many projects are in the CIP, and what is their cumulative value?
Well, our total projects submitted for the 2015 proposed plan is 94 projects. And the cost for all of those over the next 5 years would be $450 million, which is a lot of money. And so especially when you compare that to our operating budget of $130 million, you can see where that's a big item to tackle.
And so all 94 of those projects, when the City Council approves this plan later in the year, will they necessarily all be part of the plan?
When the council approves the plan in March, yes, they will be adopted as part of the resolution, the formal plan, yes.
And is there a normal number of projects or a normal amount of money that the city typically spends on capital improvements each year?
Sure. In 2015, which was a pretty normal year for us, for example, the Water Fund adopted a capital budget of almost $6 million. And so that's pretty normal for the the Water Fund. For the Wastewater Fund, they adopted a budget of almost $2 million. And so you'll see those expenditures on and on each year in the Wastewater Fund. The General Fund, we usually adopt a cash for capital projects of $1.75 million. Unfortunately, we used that this year to tackle council priorities, namely street maintenance, which was also really lends itself to the CIP. But you'll also see us throughout the year regularly amend the budget for CIP. For example, we have a bond issue coming up for public safety projects, and that'll be about $13.5 million. So you'll regularly see us amend the budget as well as adopt capital funds in the original budget.
Let's talk a bit about the two biggest kind of improvements in the plan that would fall under the umbrellas of first streets and then second water. Let's talk about streets first. How many street projects are there in the plan, and what is the cumulative value of those projects?
Sure. The streets projects certainly are probably the biggest number of projects in the plan. We have 55 projects, and they're at an estimated cost of over $150 million. Certainly, we'll have a better idea of what to estimate for the cost of those projects once the street survey is complete, which just began. And so that's a big part of the CIP.
So our viewers can probably guess at this, but what are some of the higher profile street projects that are within the CIP?
Sure. I'm sure you see streets in your neighborhood and as you're traversing the city that you would assume would be on our list. And so you're absolutely seeing that in our plan. You're seeing Bell Street, you're seeing Southwest Boulevard, you're seeing Main Street. Those are streets that we've identified preliminarily as needing a total reconstruction, which of course would be part of the CIP since that's a big project.
You mentioned just a bit earlier that the city is investing more in its annual street maintenance program. Talk a little bit about how that annual maintenance program compares to what we're trying to do with the street projects that are in the CIP.
Absolutely. The street maintenance program has been a big undertaking. We have increased funding for that in recent years quite a bit because of positive economic experience. And so that street maintenance program will work hand in hand with a street reconstruction program. So the street maintenance program is intended to address streets that are in pretty good shape, streets that need seal coating or a mill and overlay, a smaller degree of improvement. And so those will be working side by side, hand in hand with the street reconstruction projects, which would be streets that are completely deteriorated that need to be rebuilt from the ground up.
And so how would that street reconstruction be funded? I mean, when you're talking about $150 million and your operating budget is in the neighborhood of that, you obviously can't pay for that in one fell swoop.
With our current debt capacity, we could issue over $35 million in streets. And so we would stagger that as the street projects are ready to roll out, but certainly that wouldn't tackle all of it. And so we're still researching opportunities to fill that gap, to meet that margin between $150 million in proposed projects versus $35 million in immediate availability of funding.
So is it a reasonable expectation that when this plan is approved and then when the budget is approved after that, that there will be $35 million of street improvements in the budget?
It's certainly our plan within the next 12 to 18 months to begin issuing that debt. And so as we stagger it, we may issue $7 million every year for 5 years. And so that $35 million will trickle into San Angelo as we're ready to spend it, which is a more cost-effective way of issuing debt and structuring it.
So let's talk a little bit about water. You mentioned a little bit earlier that on a normal year, we spend about $6 million in water improvements. What do those water projects generally consist of?
You'll certainly see water projects such as the Red Arroyo Detention Pond as a potential future water supply. You'll also see, for example, the water reuse study. So those are far-reaching items that we hope to address and begin tackling and having an idea of what need to happen there. But you'll also see pretty routine things that we do every year, such as water main replacement, transmission line replacement. And so we do about 15,000 feet of water mains to be replaced each year, and that's included as part of your CIP.
And so you mentioned about the Red Arroyo project, the treated wastewater project. Those things are being studied right now. So those will be part of the plan?
Yes, they are proposed to be included in the 2015 CIP.
Now, streets, you mentioned, are funded out of the general fund, which is essentially your sales tax and your property taxes. Water projects are funded differently. Talk a little bit about the difference there and how water projects are funded.
Your water projects are primarily funded through your utility bill. There's a portion of your utility bill every billing cycle that will go into a capital portion, and that capital fund is the $6 million I was referencing earlier, that every year we have almost $6 million set aside in that capital fund to address major issues. You do occasionally see us issue debt for water projects. For example, the Hickory Water Supply, we had a Texas Water Development Board loan for $120 million. That's not something we could have done just on the water utility bill or just with issuing debt. It was a combined effort to make that big project happen.
What are some other projects in the plan, not related to streets or not related to water, that you think are of general interest and impact to our citizens?
Sure. Of course, I think the animal shelter improvements will have a big impact to San Angeloans. I think that there's some interesting things going on out there. I think you'll also be interested by the bicycle improvement program. That's a pretty big undertaking that's proposed by our MPO division, and that could be a really neat project for San Angelo. We also have, the Concho River Bosque Park continued improvements, and the public information studio, not to be missed. Lots of exciting things coming up for San Angelo.
You touched very briefly on the animal shelter, and what's being talked about out there is actually building a separate facility to serve as an adoption center, correct?
Sure, that would be the long-range plan. We have some immediate needs we need to identify in the current facility, and then that would be a future we're proposing probably more than 5 years out for the adoption center, but certainly that's something that's on our radar.
So as part of this process, the city charter requires that we seek public input as we're crafting the CIP each year, and we have a couple of public forums planned. Talk about that.
Absolutely. We have a public comment period that's required by the city charter, and that starts January 16th. And so by then, the draft CIP will be online at the cosatx.us/CIP input and at my office, which we've already talked about. But the public forums are really where the meat's at. That's where we get the most back and forth between citizens and relevant staff. The first one is going to be February 19th at 6 p.m. at the Convention Center at 501 Rio Concho Drive. We're going to actually air that live, and so be sure to check that out at cosatx.us/watch. And we're going to have relevant staff available to hopefully answer any questions as citizens bring them forward. In the past, this has been a really, really impactful way to take the information from the citizens directly to the council as we make a decision for what should be in the CIP and perhaps what we've overlooked and what needs to be considered. If you can't make it to that public forum, we're going to have a second one, February 22nd at Lakeview.
Actually, February 23rd.
My apologies. At February 23rd at Lincoln Middle School at 6 p.m. as well. And so lots of opportunities to weigh in on what you think your city should be doing.
And I should mention that the forum here in the Convention Center, we will be re-airing on SATV, so people can catch that as well. We've also established an online opportunity to gather thoughts on the CIP.
Sure, and that's always been really impactful in the past. And so we hope to have people check out cosatx.us/CIP input. There's plenty of information out there to be able to weigh in on survey results, projects that are already proposed, or submit new ideas that perhaps we haven't touched on yet. And so we're already getting those rolling in, and we hope to have lots of input through that as well.
And we should mention that survey at cosatx.us/CIP input. It's only 4 questions, just takes a few minutes to finish. If people want more information about the CIP process or about the plan itself, how can they go about getting that?
They should call me. I have lots of information to share, and I would love to visit with anybody that's interested. I'm at 653-6291 or morgan.chegwidden at cosatx.us.
We've been talking with Morgan Chegwidden. She is our budget manager, and we hope you'll be with us for the next episode of The City.